Okay, so you might be wondering, hey, Thomas, what's with the whole log cabin look and the change of scenery? Didn't you recently do a video on the importance of a studio? And the answer is yes, I did. However, I decided to come out to beautiful Leavenworth, Washington, just to spend a few days out here. And the main reason I decided to come out here was because I'm going to be doing some planning for the next quarter and for some of the big projects that we're going to be working on, both for Rightly and Company, as well as notable themes. And so whenever we're talking about planning, at least for me anyways, I'm going to be talking about the Full Focus Planner. So I have done a number of videos in the past where we talked about the Full Focus Planner and how I use it in particular. But the reason it's going to be relevant for me right now and something that I wanted to share with you in regards to the planner is planning big projects. So if you're like me, there's a lot of tasks that you have to do throughout the course of a day. Maybe you have to answer emails, maybe there are some client things you have to take care of. But what happens inevitably when you're working on a number of really big projects is that it's really easy to start feeling overwhelmed with the bigger tasks that you have to tackle. That's why I've made it a habit, both in my digital form as well as with the Full Focus Planner, to be daily going through and making it a habit to track big projects. So here's what I do in the Full Focus Planner. What I typically do is there's the daily big three, right? But in addition to that, there's also a weekly section that has become immensely useful for me. So what I like to do is, on a weekly basis, take a look at the big projects I currently have in process. So I go through those weekly projects, I break them down, and this is key. What I do is I always plan out what the next action is for each of those big projects. I think it's really easy when you're managing really big projects or there's things that take a lot longer to just put those on the back burner and not necessarily take the next action. Or another element that comes in along with that as well is just feeling overwhelmed with how big the project is. So here's a practical example for me. I design WordPress-based websites and themes for independent professionals or companies. And a website is a really big project for me to complete, me and my team, because it's something that we have to, there's the design phase, there's the development phase, there's the back and forth, there's the setting up of the hosting, there's all the adjustments in between. It's just a big project, and it can take a decent amount of time based upon the complexity of that individual project that we're working on. What that means is that it's easy, if there isn't a method in place, to allow smaller pieces of that project to fall through the cracks, meaning the project will just take longer or just will never get finished. Perhaps you can relate. Maybe there is a big project that you just kind of keep putting to the back burner because it just feels so overwhelming. By making it a habit on a weekly basis and reviewing all the big projects, and then underneath it just kind of jotting out the next task, the next action that needs to be taken, can just help you break that big task down into smaller ones to ensure that it's always moving forward. So in terms of the Full Focus Planner, what I do is I just jump over on a weekly basis to that weekly section. And one of the things you'll be able to notice within the planner is that you've got something called the weekly preview. So this is a great thing to go through in general, but what I wanted to focus on specifically was step 4. So in the planner, under step 4, you've got this section where you can refer to your calendar for goals and tasks. So in this section, what I do is I go through, and this is where I use this section specifically for the purpose of reviewing big things. So they do also have in here is the, the after action review, and then the weekly big 3. I don't use the weekly big 3 for this process. That's kind of the next step. But for step 4, what I do is I look through all my projects, I list them all out on here, on step 4, and then what I do is after I've gone through and I've listed out all the big projects, underneath every big project, I list out the next action for that project. So for example, if I'm working on a really big, so for the Michael Hyatt team, recently built a book launch website. Let's say that the next action for me on that website is to make changes that were recently sent through to me. So I would write down, make changes to website, something really simple. Go down to the next project. What's the next action? Well, I had submitted a new revision for this design comp, so I'm currently waiting to hear back from the client. If that's your next action, if you're just waiting, then write that down. This way you know that you've gone through everything and that you're not missing or leaving anything out. That could be really important. Okay, so then what I do next is I jump over to the step 5, which is the weekly big 3. And according to the planner, it says, referring to step 4, list 3 items you must accomplish this week to advance your goals or your projects. Now here's the key. What I do not write here is a project. Don't write a project. I write a next action of that project. So remember, I've gone through in step 4, I listed out all my projects. Then for each project, I've listed out the next action. And out of those, now what I do on this step is that I want to make sure that out of all those next actions for all of those projects, what is the most crucial? What is the most important? That can be on a number of different things. It could be based upon the deadline of the project. It can be how pivotal that next action is to the completion of that project. Rank all those next actions according to the ones that are the most important, and then list them out as your weekly big 3. And then you can just kind of follow along with the full focus planner in terms of how they recommend that you list it out. If you have to brainstorm and think this through a little bit, one of the things I like is that on this weekly section, they've added this blank page next to the weekly big 3, which is really useful because I use that for a lot of brainstorming and just kind of testing out or jotting out which pieces may or may not warrant the highest priority moving forward. So as always, I always recommend the full focus planner if you don't already have it. I've got a number of videos on how I use the full focus planner. This is just the most recent thing and the thing that I'm going to be doing this week as I'm planning out a number of big projects and things that I have in the works for you guys. Again, one of the things that people have been asking for is a video all about all the gear I use, as well as the particular pieces or way that I set up my studio. I know I'm not in my studio right now, but I will be creating a video that is coming soon. I will be working on a video listing out all the different things that I use, so you can kind of pick and choose if you want to start doing video for your platform on which pieces are going to work best for you. Okay, so also one of the things I wanted to mention, if you haven't already, I've got a totally free workshop, a free video course that is now available for you. This is a workshop that I was going to charge near $1,000 for this, and I decided to give it to you guys absolutely free. So just head on over to rightly.training, or you can go to rightly.co/training, rightly.training, where you can sign up for the absolutely free brand building workshop. As always, if you found this video useful, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.